Days of the Blackbird. A Tale of Northern Italy by Tomie DePaola. As read by Tara Rose Stromberg. Many years ago, high in the northern mountains of the country now known as Italy, a duke lived alone with his daughter, Gemma. He was a widower and had brought Gemma up by himself. The fine house in which they lived stood in the middle of the town, and the doors were open to any and all who had need. For Duca Gennaro was a kind man, who was known to be wise and fair to all. Every morning, Duca Gennaro would sit behind his huge table in the great hall and listen to the people who came with their problems, arguments, and complaints. From the time she was a small child, Gemma had watched her father talk to each one and seen them leave satisfied and happy with his advice. In the afternoons, Gemma would join her father in the courtyard after her studies. "And what did you do this fine day, Cara, my sweet one?" Duca Gennaro would ask. Gemma would tell her father all she had done, what she had read, and what new things she had learned from her tutor. As they sat and talked, the brightly colored birds, nestled in the trees, would begin to sing. "Ah, listen, my little one," said Duca Gennaro. "Il concerto, the concert, has begun." Always one song lifted in the air above the others. It was from a pure white bird, and her song was the sweetest of all. Gemma called her La Colomba. Duca Gennaro was never happier than when he was in his courtyard with Gemma, listening to the birds serenade them. But winter came early in these high mountains. As soon as the snow began to fall and the days grew shorter, the birds left for warmer places in the south. Then Duca Gennaro and Gemma would spend their afternoons together in the great hall, near a large crackling fire burning brightly in the fireplace. Snowdrifts would pile higher and higher, and winter seemed to go on forever. But Duca Gennaro always reassured Gemma that spring would return. "Soon, dear Gemma, the days will get longer. The sun will shine. La primavera will come. Then the birds will return, and you will have il concerti again," Gemma told her father. "Yes," he would say. "I miss my bird songs." Just as her father had promised, the snows would melt, the trees would sprout buds, and then one day, the clear song of La Colomba would fly through the windows and into the great hall. She was always the first to return. In no time at all, the courtyard was filled with flowers and birds. Duca Gennaro and Gemma would take their places under the trees and listen to the beautiful melodies. One year, after a hot summer under clear blue skies, Duca Gennaro fell ill. The doctors were called, but nothing they did seemed to help. The Duke stayed in his bed, unable to get up. "Open the window, Gemma, so I can hear il concerto," Duca Gennaro said. The songs of the birds seemed to soothe the Duke. So every afternoon, Gemma would go to his room and open the window. Together, they listened to the bird songs, and Duca Gennaro was able to fall asleep. Gradually, the days shortened and the air grew colder. Gemma knew that winter was on its way. Even now, a dusting of snow covered the courtyard in the early morning. Gemma saw some of the birds fly off. "Please, please, carissimi, dear ones, stay and sing for my father. He will surely get better if he can hear your music. For it is then that he rests. I will feed you and put baskets in the trees where you can nest and keep warm. Restate, vi prego, please stay. Gemma put out plates of seeds and suet for the birds to eat. She tied baskets to the branches of the trees and filled them with soft wool so the birds would be warm. Every day the birds sang, and even though the Duke didn't get better, he didn't get worse. The heavy snowfalls didn't stay away forever. In December, they began. Now more birds left, but La Colomba stayed and sang longer and sweeter for Gemma and her father. Soon it would be Natale, Christmas. Every year, Gemma and her father look forward to Christmas morning. The children from the town would come to the Great Hall for a feast, with panettone, hot chocolate, and a small gift for each of them. This year, the Duke was too ill to leave his room. "Gemma," he said to his daughter, "you must sit in my chair on Christmas morning and greet the children and give them their gifts." Gemma did as he wished, and La Colomba and the other birds that were still there sang a beautiful song for Natale. After Christmas, more snow fell, and by the end of Epifania, the Feast of the Three Kings on January 6, most of the birds had gone. No more yellow birds with their pointy voices. No more bluebirds with their voices like flutes. They and the green birds and the deep rose birds had all flown off to the south. Finally, in the middle of January, the red birds with their clear trills left too. Only La Colomba was still there. The Duke's friends knew how much he loved the bird songs, so they came to the courtyard to play and sing. But it wasn't human songs he wanted to hear, and the music and loud voices only tired him. Gemma went to the garden, wrapped in her warm cloak. "Please, Colomba, please stay," she begged. "I love my father so much. The doctors told me that he needs the warmth of spring to get well. Your song gives him hope and reminds him that spring will come again soon." La Colomba stayed. Now it was near the end of January, the coldest days of the year. Bitter winds swirled around the mountain peaks, and the houses shuddered with the cold. Still, every afternoon Gemma would open the window a crack, sit on her father's bed, and hold his frail hand while La Colomba sang her song loudly and clearly. On January 28th, the weather turned even more frigid. Inside the house, a fire blazed in the fireplace, and Gemma moved her father into the great hall. Outside, the basket of wool couldn't keep La Colomba warm. Gemma opened the window, and La Colomba flew onto the sill, where the warm air from the fire could reach her. She started to sing her song and did not stop until darkness fell. Then she flew to the top of the chimney, where the heat from the fire reached up to the bricks, and she nestled down in the warmth. For the next 2 days, La Colomba stayed in the chimney. She left only to eat and to sing for Duca Gennaro. He had fallen into a deep, feverish sleep, and Gemma sat by his side day and night. On the third day, the last day of January, La Colomba left the chimney and flew to the windowsill to sing. Gemma opened the window wide on the first notes of the song. What she saw startled her, for the soot had changed La Colomba into a blackbird. "La merle!" Gemma cried. "A blackbird!" But when the bird's song filled the room, she knew it was La Colomba. The Duke opened his eyes and sat up for the first time in 3 days. He was weak, but whispered, "My bird song." "Grazie, merle," Gemma said. "Your song has saved my father. Now I know he will be better." La merle flew back to the chimney. The next morning, a warm wind blew down the mountain, and Gemma felt spring on its way. The 3 coldest days of the year were over. But La Colomba remained La merle. Her feathers were never white again. On the first warm day of the new year, Gemma and her father were in the courtyard when a red bird arrived, then a blue one, a yellow, and a green. La merle was waiting for them. Soon the courtyard was filled once more with song. From that year on, La Colomba would be known as La Mera, and all her children would be as well. To honor her, Duca Gennaro proclaimed that the last 3 days in January would thenceforth be known as Le Giornata della Merla, the days of the Blackbird. And to this day, in the mountains of northern Italy, it is the same. Days of the Blackbird, a tale of northern Italy, by Tomie DePaola. As read by Tara Rose Stromberg. Produced by The End Audio Productions.